5:15, the U.S. has the highest rate of maternal mortality of any developed nation, and 80% of these deaths are preventable.
You know, women, we're important to people. You're important to someone, and don't let your health be on the back burner.
I talked with a local woman who almost died days after she gave birth. She told me how she knew something wasn't right, how she was dismissed and misdiagnosed before a local cardiologist saved her when she suffered a heart attack. It's on her mind.
I feel like I have a home in heaven, but I didn't want to leave my babies yet.
Just days after delivering her 5th child in November, 40-year-old Cian Walton suffered cardiac arrest.
I took one picture, and that was when I knew we had our hands full. She had suffered a spontaneous left main coronary artery dissection.
Cian was treated for gestational diabetes and slightly elevated blood pressure, but overall she was healthy and says even her OB thought the delivery was picture perfect. Things
went really well. In fact, he even told me afterwards, he was like, we're going to have group birthing classes and you're going to be in charge, and I'm going to point to you and say, everyone, that's how you deliver a baby.
But about 10 days later, she woke her husband up in the middle of the night because she was having chest pain.
I was like, Matt, I don't know, but it's almost like I'm having a heart attack or something.
They called 911. Firefighters were the first ones there. They checked her blood pressure. EMTs arrived and did an EKG. That was normal. She blamed anxiety because she just learned her husband had lost his job, and she was panicked about losing health insurance with a new baby. But the EMTs told her it would be smart to get blood work within 24 hours just to rule out a cardiac event. So the next day, they went to the hospital.
She said, oh, so you've been Googling. I was kind of flippant about it. I just started crying, and I told my husband, this is stupid. We should just go home. I'm fine.
But he insisted they stay put. She says the blood work showed elevated cardiac enzymes. A CT scan showed what the doctor thought were small pulmonary embolisms or blood clots in her lungs. They transferred her to a Tulsa hospital for one night, put her on blood thinners, then sent her home, and she kept having chest pain.
But they told me with pulmonary embolisms that wasn't uncommon because it can hurt to breathe.
A few days later, the pain got more intense, and again, her husband knew something was wrong.
I said, I think I'll just sit here a minute, maybe it'll go away. And he said, no, we need to go to the hospital.
He didn't wait for an ambulance. He loaded her up and drove her straight to Oklahoma Heart Institute at Hillcrest South.
The pain was just getting worse and worse. It was centered right in the middle of my chest, and it was just like a squeezing pain and pressure. It radiated down my arms, and then it was shooting through to my back. They were transferring me from the bed to the table, and that's when I had a cardiac arrest. And I do not remember anything after that.
Initial suspicion was like, well, maybe she had thrown a blood clot or something. I looked at the scan as it was being done. There was no clot in her lung. And at that point, I knew we were in trouble. The left main is basically the largest blood vessel to the heart. When that has a problem, the entire heart really has a problem, and that was why she ended up having a cardiac arrest.
They discovered I did not have any pulmonary embolisms. Dr. Zimmerman said that he got me into the cath lab, and they found what was called, it's something called SCAD, spontaneous coronary artery dissection. So my arteries had actually dissected, and they were basically like a tear, and that's what had caused me to have a massive heart attack. They used to think it was rare, but they began studying it about 10 years ago and found out it's actually not as rare. It predominantly happens in women, and they do not know what causes it.
Cian is right. SCAD is the primary cause of heart attack in women under 50. It's only blamed for between 1% and 4% of all heart attacks. But the American Heart Association says it's understudied. And Dr. Stanley Zimmerman, the cardiologist who saved Cian, says there's a link to hormones. He worked quickly using a pump to prevent heart damage and several stents to reopen Cian's artery to save her life. At the time, he knew she just delivered a baby, but he didn't realize she was a mother of 5.
The stress of obviously, you know, a dad sitting out in the waiting room trying to figure out how he's going to maybe raise 5 kids alone, that was a lot.
He was, I mean, she said, kind of just genius in the way he placed my stents and how he did it.
She says she thinks it could have been a combination of the stress from her husband losing his job and postpartum hormones. She's participating in SCAD research with the Mayo Clinic, and they've ruled out any genetic predisposition. She's on several prescription medications and daily aspirin.
I'm lucky. No, I'm not lucky. I won't say that. I'm blessed and fortunate because I don't have any significant heart damage. My heart function is completely normal. Like I said, my faith is important to me, and I don't think I'd be here if it weren't. There were just so many things that were coincidence, but they weren't. You know, I think it was the Lord at work in all of this.
Cian says she's so thankful to the whole community who rallied around her family when she was in the hospital, and to the firefighters, EMTs, nurses, and of course, Dr. Zimmerman, who saved her life. Her message to all women: don't ignore your symptoms and don't feel stupid. Push for answers. We're too important and our families need us. What's on your mind? Email onhermind@fox23.com.